Forms are essential part of every web application. In this video, I'll show you how to create and manage forms in React like a pro. This is part of our full free React crash course, so subscribe to the channel to don't miss the rest of our videos coming out. Now let's jump into the video. So here we have our base app component, and here I have some styles that I want to import here. So we have this import of style.css right here, and here we got our style coming up. And now let's come and create our first form in React. At first, let's say we have our fragment right here. Then let's say we got this h1 of our React form here. Then let's say we got this hr. And here we're going to have our simple form right here, which what we need to do here is we're going to have our input, of course, which with the type of text here. And let's say we want to have this placeholder of the name. And after this, we got another input with the type of submit, which is going to be this submit here as the text too. But pay attention, as same as this input, we can use this button with the name of this submit, and here we can have this type, and we make this to the submit too. And now here in the form, we need to have this unsubmit right here, and we need to pass function to this, which is going to be our form handler. So let's say here at our function app, we create our form handler. So let's say here we have this function of handle form, which is going to be this arrow function here. And inside of this, we can do the things that we want, and we need to pass the name of our function here in our unsubmit in our form. And here we can do the things that we want. For example, at the first, let's use the simple alert here with the text of this test to see if this is working. So because we have this handle form right here in our forms and submit, and here we got our button with the type of submit here. So whenever we click on this, we should get this alert of test in our browser. And if we check, you can see we got this alert. But we don't want to have this type of static text here, and we want to grab the things that are inside of our forms and inputs. And to do this, we're going to use our states. So the first thing that we need to have is, of course, importing our use state in our component. And then here at the top level of our app function, we're going to use our state. And here for the name of our state, we're going to use this input. And now when we come down here, we can alert this input right here. And if we got some things right here, if we submit, you can see we got those results right here. But again, we don't want to do this kind of things. What we want to do is we want when we do and write anything right here and hit submit, that one comes into our states and our alert in this case. But pay attention here. Before we having any logic behind of our form, if we have some word here and we hit submit, the moment we click the OK on alert, let's try again, you can see it's going to be removed. And for preventing this, we can have this prevent default in our handle form. And that is going to be this event.prevent default. And this function prevents that action, which we need to have and very useful to have in our forms. Then for having our inputs value to come to this state, what we're going to do is we're going to use our onChange, and here we're going to have our simple inline handler for doing that thing. And what we're going to do here is we're going to set the input to the value that we have here in our input box. But pay attention, for that we need to grab something from our tag, which is this input. And we simply have this e right here as referring to tag. And here when we want set input, we use this e dot, and inside of that we have this target. And inside of that, we got this value. And this is going to put this string into our state. So now if we change anything right here and press the submit, you can see we got our result right here. And of course, you can have your changed result coming up. And this is the most basic way of having some input and printing that in our console or alerting that in our web page. And pay attention, here in our form handler, we can do several things with this data that we grab, like connecting to the backend, logging in the user, changing or updating any data in our website or our web applications. But the next question that you might have is how we're going to manage multiple form inputs. You know that we got this kind of input right here, and of course you can have multiple use states. For example, let's say this is import for the name, and let's say we got another one for the email, and actually we need to have these name and email here in our set inputs too. And here in our handler, instead of alerting, this time let's console log. And what we're going to have is we're going to have this string which says the name, and here we're going to have this input value that we got, and as same as this, we're going to have our email right here, and of course email right here too. And don't forget, we need to have another input for our email, which the type is going to be this email, of course, and this one is going to be email too. And here, when we have unchanged in our email field and input, which is this one, we want to set input email to this either targeted value, and when we want to change this name, we want to set input name to this value that we got. Now here, if we open our console right here, you can see we got our empty console, and if we have, for example, this ASD as our name and this ASD at, for example, gmail.com as our email, if we submit, you can see we got those results right here. And of course, we can change these items how we want. For example, let's make these like this. If we submit, you can see again we got these results and different emails and names and data in our console, which we can save these items to our databases too. But the topic I want to tell you in this part of the video is having multiple states like this. For example, think you have 8 or 9 different inputs in your form. For that, if you use this kind, you need to have 9 different states that you should manage and maintain. But instead of that, you can use only one state to do all of those items. So here we're going to have this input data right here, as well as here too. So we got this input data in 2 of these items. And here in our use state, instead of having this string, we're going to have this object, which this is going to hold this name, which is empty string at first, and the email, which again is going to be empty string at first too. And here, by using this, you use only one state to manage your input data. But pay attention, this is going to be object containing multiple items inside of it and not some simple string or integer or number. So let's come here and change these items too. Here we got our input data, that's name as our name, and as well as that, we got this input data and dot email here for our email. And here, if we come down here, you can see we got these values right here, which we have this unchanged, and we got this set input name and set input email. But if we want to change like this, for example, set input data, and we pass the string to that, you can see if we type here, we got these undefined right here, because by using this, our set input data is going to receive string from here, and instead of having this kind of object, it's going to show the string, and because of that, here we cannot access the name. But how we're going to deal with this? Well, the way we're going to do this is by having another function here as our change handler. So we're going to have our this change handler right here, and here what we need to do in our forms, instead of having this kind of thing that you saw right here, we're going to have this simple unchanged, and inside of that, this change handler. And we're going to do exactly the same thing for our next input too. And now here in our change handler, what we need to do is we're going to use our set input data right here as our function, and then inside of this we're going to pass this object, and then inside of this we're going to have two options of name and email, as you know. But we don't want static values, and because of that we're going to use this kind of e.target, that name right here, which is going to grab the name that we need to put in our inputs, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And then here we're going to have another of these items, which is this e.target.value. And after this, of course, we need to have name for our inputs. So the name for this is going to be actually the word of name, and the name for this one is going to be email here. And another thing that we need to have here in our inputs is we're going to have the value. And what is that? Is going to be just like this. We pass this value, and here, what value do we want this input to change? It's going to be our input data, and inside of this, we're going to change the name. And we're going to do the same thing with the next input that we have, which is this email. So here we're going to have this value again, but this time instead of having this input data.name, we're going to use this input data.email. And now if we check, we got an error, and that is because we have not passed our item into our change handler, which we use this e as referring to our tag. So we need to use this e here too. So by having this, we're going to refer to the tag that we want to use. And now if we check, if we remove both of these items, for example, for the name, let's say we want to have this Jack right here. And for the email of that, let's say we want to have this jack@gmail.com. And here, if we submit, you can see we got this error of our name is undefined. And for creating this, what we need to do here in our object, which we're passing into our set input data, we need to have this three dots and then the name of our state. And by having only this time, if we remove these items again from here too and pass this Jack right here, again this jack@gmail.com, and we press the submit, you can see we got our result right here. And of course, you can change the thing that you want. For example, let's say we change this Jack with Tom. Again, when we submit, we got our new results. And because we got all of our input data in our single state, we can send that to backend and do anything that we want to do with our data. And for having the validation and error handling, for example, if both of these items are required, you simply can add this required right here, and the user should have both of these items. For example, if this is not filled, if we click, we got this, please fill this out. And after we fill this, we got our result and all of other things that we can use right here in our change handler and our handle form. So that's how you work with forms in React, and you now have all the tools to build powerful and dynamic forms. If this video was helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more React tutorials.